The dysgenics of Herrnstein and Murray is nothing but a late 20th century version of de Gobineau's racial degradation from the mixing of blood and Carroll's unnatural production of blacks and whites. They all perceive blacks to be not only an intellectual drag on white society, but also corrosive of its civility and civilization. This is especially troublesome insofar as they all perceive individuals with lower levels of cognitive ability to reproduce quicker and in greater numbers than those with higher levels of cognitive ability. If, as Murray and Herrnstein opine, a smarter population is more likely to be and more capable of being made into a civil citizenry, if blacks were to have the cognitive deficits that they ascribe to them, and if a highly civil society is most conducive to the persistence of civil order as well as civilization itself, it follows that a more cognitively gifted, that is, less black society ought to be a goal of sound public policy in the United States. At least that's the conceptual inference, regardless of what Murray would say, and Herrnstein if we could bring him back from the dead. Thus, for example, public policy should be designed to discourage cognitively deficient blacks from procreating too quickly and in the numbers that they do. The objective necessity for this sort of public policy has been shrouded, say Murray and Herrnstein, by what they call the ideology of equality. The ideology of equality which now guides the behavior of policymakers in the United States. Like de Gobineau and Carroll before them, Herrnstein and Murray believe in inequality as an organizing social principle. De Gobineau says explicitly, I believe that human races are unequal. Carroll states unequivocally, it was man's social equality with the Negro which brought sin into the world, and it is man's social equality with the Negro and the evils which inevitably grows out of it that keeps sin in the world. Herrnstein and Murray are not as blunt as either de Gobineau or Carroll, with more racial circumspection, but with the same rancid effect they posit. They say, what do they posit? And I'm citing them. Cognitive petitioning of the society, which has been ongoing, that was my insert. Cognitive petitioning of the society will continue. It cannot be stopped because the forces, and I insert especially the natural ones with genetic differences, because the forces driving it cannot be stopped. There is an iron determinism here. Continued cognitive partitioning of the society is inevitable, for inequality of endowments, including intelligence, is a reality, they say. Moreover, trying to pretend that inequality does not really exist has led to disaster, they say. Trying to eradicate inequality with artificially manufactured outcomes has led to disaster, they say. It is time for America once again to try living with inequality as life is lived. Again, it is time for America once again, say Murray Herrnstein, to try living with inequality as life is lived. Given the intelligence gap between blacks and whites that Murray Herrnstein claimed to exist, given what they deem to be the inevitable partitioning of the society along the cognitive line, if we may now speak at the end of the 20th century, along the cognitive line, and given the correspondence between the cognitive line and the color line, differential cognitive ability becomes a justification for the racial stratification of the society. Put differently, on grounds of putative racial differences in cognitive ability, the call that America should once again try to live with inequality is nothing but a not too subtle admonition to keep black people in their place. what Murray Herrnstein either may be ignorant of or conveniently elected to ignore is the historical fact of the approximately 18 generations of black people in colonial America, the United States, since the 1630s, using a 20-year floor for generation. Each and every one of those generations, barring the generation born since 1967, the year of the Supreme Court's Loving versus Virginia. Note, I did not say 1964 with the Civil Rights Act of that year. The generation born since 1967, that each and every one of those generations has passed its life under state-imposed, state-sanctioned inequality. For black people, then, there is absolutely nothing to be desired or is desirable about America trying once again to live with inequality. But there is an equally compelling point to be made here. Herrnstein and Murray are at war with the very foundations of the American Republic. Though Taney was correct in observing that neither the framers of the Declaration of Independence nor the Constitution envisaged a state of equality between blacks and whites, it is nonetheless the case that the Republic committed itself to principles of equality, not inequality. The Republic did live with inequality, but always within the framework of principles of equality. There was then a persistent contradiction between the egalitarian principles of the Republic and its inegalitarian practices, especially in relation to black people. Since 1967, the Republic has strived hard to conform egalitarian principles with egalitarian behaviors. In admonishing America to try living with inequality again, Herrnstein and Murray would have the Republic undercut its efforts to harmonize its principles and its practices. Indeed, one may well say that they would organize it around principles of inequality which would be transformative of the original conception of the Republic itself. In this regard, Herrnstein and Murray are radicals. Herrnstein and Murray are radicals at war with the ideals of the American Republic, pushing a racial agenda that is incommensurate with the practices of a society in a bygone era, but incommensurate with the ideals of that society. Herrnstein and Murray claim that it is fitting and proper that individuals should be able to lead lives of dignity, but it is not the business of government to formulate and implement policies designed to give people dignity, but rather to make the leading of lives with dignity accessible to all. Accessible to all, that's their term. Such accessibility, though, will ever be delimited by differences in cognitive ability. For example, that which obtains between blacks and whites. Here, then, is the hard edge of the racial politics of Herrnstein-Murray. Purported natural differences in cognitive ability occasion the racial partitioning of American society and legitimizes the underrepresentation of black people in all spheres of social life that are cognitively demanding. Since such underrepresentation is supposedly fair and just, it is assumed to be right and proper that the weight of critical governmental institutions be brought to bear in the defense of inequality. And so the pseudoscience of Herrnstein and Murray, like that of de Gobineau and Carroll before them, undergirds a politics of perpetual black social marginalization. In conclusion, it is well to make the following points. First, the bell curve is simply a late 20th century version of the well-worn theme of the racial inferiority of black people. Second, unmasked, and I hope I have done some unmasking for you, unmasked of its academic regalia, the bell curve bears a striking family resemblance to the inequality of the races and the Negro beast, or in the image of God. Third, Herrnstein and Murray room comfortably in the racialist tradition of Jefferson, Taney, Lincoln, and Brown. Finally, and most important, the bell curve is a gauntlet thrown down before black people at the end of the 20th century. It is an attack manifesto. The challenge then to black people in general and to black politics in particular, with the assistance of those whose sense of proportion is not skewed, distorted, and distracted, with the assistance of those, to continue resolutely and with unflinching courage, the articulation and implementation of measures designed to make ever the more commensurate the egalitarian principles and practices of the Republic. Thank you.